Okay, so as somebody who absolutely refuses to shut the hell up in my writing, like I get emotionally attached to every individual word. Short stories are completely lost on me. What the hell are you supposed to write less than 50,000 words? I write YouTube comments that are longer than 50,000 words. But I do kind of get short stories. I think there's definitely something to be said for the classicness of them. There's a lot of classic writers who have started with short stories. Hemingway, for instance, used to write a lot of his stories about Nick Adams before the sun also rises in a weekly newspaper publication, and same thing with F. Scott Fitzgerald before he wrote The Great Gatsby. This style of writing was pretty common throughout the 19th and late 20th centuries, but that kind of begs the question as to whether there's still value in it now. But I think it's possible the 18th century people were onto something, because short stories, they allow you the opportunity to practice. They also allow you the opportunity to familiarize yourself with the characters before really putting them into your world, or familiarizing yourself with the world before putting it in the characters. It's kind of like, I guess, putting chicks into a little box in your house before letting them into a hen house, because they don't know how to be hens yet.
Okay, Kelly,
and it's no secret that publishers definitely have an easier time with your writing, and so do editors, and honestly, so does the audience if it's shorter. I think that I'm probably not the only one who has looked at a book and seen just how intimidatingly large it is and put it back down, because I don't have time for that. But if your story is done, then it's done. There's no reason to add unnecessary stuff. Art is pretty subjective. There's no law that says that you have to write a novel-length piece of writing. That being said, there are, however, guidelines. For example, if a book is from 7,000 words to 40,000 words, it's actually more like a novella. And if it's less than 6,000 words, then it is a short story. But what if it's 7,000 words exactly? I don't know. I'm not here to count things and do math. But anyway, I've read probably like 3 books here. 2 of them are actually novellas, and 1 of them is a collection of short stories. I don't know about you, but for me, that is a ton. I know that there's a lot of booktubers with a TBR that's like 3 miles long. The only thing in my life that are 3 miles long are my runs. But the first of the books was Elise in the Oblivion. It is a pulp fiction novella. Elise in the Oblivion was actually written by a former coworker of mine, Chris Gray. Look at him, he's a whole officer. And in the beginning, it starts out pretty normal, but at the same time, it's really tense because she's married to this guy who's in the army, and everything looks like it's gonna be okay. But she meets her former friend.
Would you say he's just a friend? Would you say he's just a friend?
At this club called the Oblivion when she has to go to Hawaii. And this guy is bad news. Like, he starts a bunch of drama despite the fact that she has a whole ass husband. And he like tries to encourage her to dance in this club, and at first she's like, no, I don't want to. But then she ends up doing it because it low-key seems like she's brainwashed. It seems like it's foreshadowing to some sort of situation where there's like espionage, and I just wanted to know what happened to Maribel. And then it just ends, and I want more, and it doesn't make sense for me to have it ordered here in San Juan because I don't live here, but it just ends on this cliffhanger, and as a millennial, I want instant gratification. I don't understand how people back in the day waited for their little newspaper articles for Ernest Hemingway to write his next story, because I can't do that. But I definitely think that Elise in the Oblivion, it's probably one of those novellas which would be better suited as a full-length novel. But that being said, if you would like both of them, I will provide the links for both in the description. And speaking of preferring YouTube to TikTok like a millennial, I ended up reading Great Love by Jenna Moreci. I think there's really no one on AuthorTube or BookTube who doesn't know who she is. I think she's faced a lot of controversy because they're saying that her novels don't really follow the advice that she gives. But this woman has over 400 videos over the course of 7 years. I mean, if she followed every single word of advice that she's ever given, ever, she wouldn't be able to write a book at all. The thing is, advice is pretty subjective, and not all advice applies to all things. Now, if I ever get a chance to read The Savior's Sambino or The Savior's Sister, maybe I'll eat my words. But in terms of Great Love, I didn't really see her rejecting any of her own advice. I don't think that you can compare something like a work of literature to someone's YouTube channel. Like, I went there to read and enjoy a short story, not to compare to an all YouTube channel. And I know I'm wording this as though I'm about to give this a glowing review, but it was alright. So she has a really engaging personality, and she posts regularly, unlike some people, and she has a very digestible platform for new writers, and I totally respect that. One positive thing about Great Love is that despite the fact that I'd never read The Savior's Champion or The Savior's Sister, I was still pretty much able to get into what she was talking about. I've never actually thought that Delphi was a main character. In fact, I'm pretty sure she was a villain, because she's like this vapid and shallow person who is trying to choose people for the Savior based on their dick size and incorrect kind of notions about their personality. So it's kind of cool to get into this villain's head, that she's kind of corny and pretentious instead of one-dimensional. Not saying she was one-dimensional in The Savior's Champion. Like I said, I've never read it. But I think one thing that I did kind of have a problem with is that it did feel kind of like a trailer to her other books. And I felt like I was being marketed to. And that being said, she's very talented at marketing. She's very talented at author tuning. But I wasn't really a fan. It didn't come off as authentic. And finally, I have to talk about someone who will love you in all your damage glory. I hope that everyone who is watching this, who knows me personally, please listen to this audiobook, because I need to talk about this with someone. It's written by Raphael Bob-Waksberg, who is also one of the authors for BoJack Horseman. And surprisingly, it really has very similar tones to BoJack Horseman. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is an ideal collection of short stories. That's loud. It maintains a consistent tone and consistent themes throughout the narrative, even though each story has nothing to do with each other. It has a very conversationalist sort of tone. I felt like I was more talking to a buddy in a bar or in a coffee shop as opposed to listening to an audiobook. Each short story has a better immersion than the last. One thing that I did find kind of off-putting was between each story there's a poem, and that kind of broke my immersion there. But other than that, it's probably one of my favorite collection of short stories that I've ever read besides World War Z. Wait a second. Is World War Z actually a collection of short stories, or is it just one long story with a bunch of really long dialogue? Maybe. I don't know. I am illiterate. Thank you for joining me on my run. Bye!